Hi, Dr. Gary Penn.
Hi, Mrs. Penn.
Are you having a scotch? Is it afternoon already? Are you allowed to have a scotch?
Somewhere it's afternoon, but I'm hoping that it's afternoon here.
What kind of scotch are you drinking?
Glenlivet. It's mostly water. Just so you know, it's mostly water, but it's a little guilty pleasure of mine. And welcome to our podcast, Dr. and Mrs.
I'm on the complete opposite of drinks once again, and still nursing a matcha tea. But I also just got over being a little sick, so I don't know. Scotch could be good.
It's medicinal. It's been proven.
Isn't it more brandy? Like maybe I should put brandy in my tea.
Maybe.
I don't think brandy and matcha go well though. And this is Astra. We could rename the podcast Dr. Mrs. and Astra because she's a frequent visitor. She wants attention because we don't want to give her attention right now. It's like you in a relationship.
No comment.
No comment. So it kind of leads to our topic that you really wanted, which is about whether or not men are the weaker sex. Now, I have to just say, this really was, Gary actually wanted to say men are the weaker sex, not even the question of it. And I said, well, I think that's a question, and I don't know that I would agree that that's true. And so we're going to dive into it a little bit today. First, we're going to do a rapid fire.
Yes, let's do
Keep
it.
it short, simple, yes, no kind of answers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First question. Does the pressure to be strong actually make men weaker?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I actually am on the fence on this.
Well, look at the question, though.
We'll
You
come
said,
back.
does
That's my
the
answer.
okay? But you said does the pressure? That's what I'm
To
saying.
be strong actually make men weaker. Does the pressure make them weaker? I don't know. I think for some men it makes them stronger, actually. Are men and women supposed to be equal in relationships?
No.
I agree with you. I don't think they should be. But there are areas I think they should be. We'll get into it more. Are traditional values still important in a relationship?
Maybe. I think yes, but I think it depends. Right? It really depends on the couple. I don't think it's like it's a rule.
I think Astra thinks yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, these are all complicated questions, actually. They're not as yes and no as I thought, but our traditional value, I'm going to say yes. I'm just going to say yes, and we'll get into it. Okay, when you were dating, were the people you were dating self-assured, confident, and happy?
You want to start with that?
I would say percentage-wise, very low. So more no than yes, unfortunately.
Could you elaborate a little bit?
Well, I will. Right now we're just rapid fire.
Okay. I have the same question.
Yeah, when you were dating, were the people you were dating self-assured, confident, and happy?
50% or?
That's higher than I would probably get.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's
That's
a little
a pretty
less.
stat.
Yeah, maybe
Not
it's a little.
bad.
Well, it's
Maybe we just dive right into that part of this.
well, it's really nerve-wracking when, first of all, we're single and we're going like, why am I single? Why don't I have anyone to love? A lot of times we'll end up like, what's wrong with me? So my friend over here, this person has this great relationship, and especially like when we're single and we're not coupled up, and it seems like all of our friends are doing all happy and in love. So we're on our heels a little bit, and maybe sometimes we're just a little bit playing with scared money.
So in reference to dating around the time I met you, because I dated for many years, got married really late, had a kid really late. So I don't even want to go back to the early years because I think it was very different than the last chapter of dating, which is before I met you. The years living in LA, it was like a parade of clowns, I have to be honest. And I'm not saying that some of the men were not good men or smart or successful, but so many damaged, broken, insecure, uncertain, do I even want to be married and have children? Like a little bit of how did I get to this place in my life? Because we're talking about now at like 40. Dating, particularly in LA, when I moved to LA, and I mean, I was 40, so I'm sure that was part of it. You know, I was at a time where wondering like, well, how did I get to this place? I'm not married, I don't have kids. I thought I'd have 4 kids, be married for sure. But I had this huge job. And it was hard to meet people. I couldn't really date people I worked with because I was kind of up the food chain. I mean, maybe I could have, but that was complicated. So once in a while, I'd meet people through friends or out. And you know, you always get excited, right? You always think, oh my God, this could be the one, whether it seems like the chemistry's right or you're attracted or, you know, they're fabulous because they like to do a lot of the same things or they have a great job. And then so quickly something would reveal itself where you're just like, what the hell just happened? There's this guy, I'll give an example. A guy I was dating, he was a professor, smart, handsome guy. And we had a good time. And, you know, moving along, like maybe a couple months in, and this is his birthday. And I think, oh, I'll surprise him and drop off like breakfast for his birthday. And I go and I ring on the doorbell. Nobody answers. I'm like, oh, bummer, you know, whatever. And I leave it there. And I see him peeking behind the curtain. And I'm like, okay, that's a little weird. And then you're like thinking like, is there someone else there? Whatever it is. And it turned out he just had some serious emotional issues. And I think he left his job. I mean, we stopped dating, but that was one of many. Then there's this comedian, super successful comedian I'm dating. And like, drove a nice car, probably made a good living, but just like, they were just like weird story after weird story. You probably have the same cast of characters of women. Like, and it's not, again, like they were smart, a lot of them, they were successful, but it was just weird. I don't know why it just felt so weird. I don't know if it's because I was older or it's just life now and what dating is like. Like, you know, we have Messiah here who's younger. We have our son who's been very lucky to meet someone. I mean, since we're talking about are men the weaker sex, more than like the female perspective in this particular instance, like, is it just that so many men are just lost and don't know what to do when it comes to dating?
I think that's clearly a big part of it. I think I think it's a big part of it. I think we the dynamic between men and women has changed over the years. I mean, in a very good way. You know, we have the Mad Men world where it's one certain way, men are powerful and women are subservient, but it's, I've seen it in my practice that women are more powerful than we are. They're smarter than we are. They're more psychologically robust. They work on themselves more. They're open to seeing that they have issues, and they'll come to therapy, and men will come to therapy too. But I just think that women are just doing so much better than, I think a lot of the statistics will bear that out. A lot of times women are doing better financially. They just have more robust lives. And so men, I don't know. They just don't know what to do. They don't have game. Maybe because, you know, in the Mad Men days when they were so obnoxious that they would just think that they would get whatever they want and all the backlash. So maybe, like, a lot of men don't even know what to do. Like, they can't be like kind of sexy and funny and interesting because they go, oh, well, I don't want to get, you know, gaslit. I don't want someone to say I'm this bad person. So maybe it's cultural a little bit. But
you know, that's a little bit of a cop-out, I think. Because I think, I'm not just talking for myself, but women I know, all ages, right? Younger women, I know lots of people that are trying to date, trying to meet the person. And I mean, they'd be so happy with just normal.
Yes.
You don't have to be so grandiose. You don't have to be Mad Men, like, oh, I'm all macho. You don't have to be any of the, you like, just be normal. Just be like somebody that can communicate and have fun with, and like, why are so many people not normal? What is, again, circling back to our topic, because I think you've made a lot of good points to me, not today necessarily, about, you know, men that do come to you and how they feel emasculated, they feel, and by the way, the statistics are still the same. Men make more money than women. Women are actually currently more educated than men, which is remarkable if you think about, there was a time most women didn't or couldn't go to college. But there still is a lack of equality, and men are, in many ways, in terms of success and financial success, higher up. And yet the level of insecurity has grown. So I'm curious, when somebody talks to you about it from that perspective, like, I know you just answered it in part, but what other things are they, like, where is this all coming from?
It's a great question. The men that I see, so many of them, they just don't know what to do. Like, a lot of them are trying to disprove negatives. Like, I'm not a pig, I'm not a misogynist, I'm not this or I'm not that. And they don't know, like, where they land anymore. It's kind of, you know, it's hard, you know, sometimes with the political correctness. They just can't be like, you know, damn, look at you. Like, they just can't be like silly and just do something.
You do that.
And well, I do that because that's right. Well, you're my wife. But it's like men just can't just be easy with it. And so, like, we seem to be a lot of, like, second guessing ourselves a lot. I think some of it is, back in the day, back in bedrock, men were dominant. We were just dominant. We had bigger jobs, we had bigger things, we made more money, we took care of our girls, you know, and we felt, you know, the thing about men, why we are the weaker sex is, you know, let me just tell you why we are so proud of our wieners. I'm sure all of you women are curious as to know why men are so proud of our penises. Let me tell you. Let me let you in on the secret. Because the reason why we're like, I remember when I would go to the gym and I would see a man walking, you know, and he's like walking naked and he's got a belly and he's kind of a overweight guy and he's like strutting and he's got a little wiener and he doesn't give a shit.
I love this visual.
And he's just like walking around like, and it hit me like, the reason is, even if you have a little wiener, you can make that little wiener get a little bigger. And it's like magical. It's kind of like Tom Hanks, I made fire. Like, all of a sudden, look what I did. And so in that way, it's like, it's magical. And God forbid we can't get it up. God forbid. Which I think is why we are the weaker sex. Because if we can't do that. And it's obviously this is metaphorical. If we can't sit there and take care of our family and make a nice living and make sure everyone's safe, and if we can't do it, because I think you know the statistics, like women, in some ways they still lack, but in some ways they're lapping us, and which is a very good thing. I mean, I look at you and how, you're brilliant, you're smart. It's amazing how many questions I ask my wife from anything like, where did I put this? And she knows 10 times out of 10, which is infuriating. But any other thing, she goes, oh, I just did this. I just went on this computer and I did this program and I just it's like, oh my God. It's like, she's amazing. It's a good thing I'm a little bit of a narcissist so I can hang with her. But it's like, for a lot of men, it's like, wait a minute, what about me? And so I think that's what's part of this, is that we are sometimes like wondering, can we hang? Can we be okay? Can I be that person for you? Can I, can I make you happy and give you everything you want? A lot of times men have a false sense of what they need to do. I need to earn more money. Men still earn more money, but women are doing really, really well.
But it goes back a little bit to what I was saying. Like, I hear what you're saying, and I can understand why a lot of men are struggling. I can. Although, remarkably, I feel like so many of the men in our world, our son-in-law, our nephews, they're fine. Their relationships are fine. Our friends, it's not just us. There is hope and possibility for many people. And we're talking about from people that are in their 20s to, 70, right? That are having successful relationships. And I think, sure, there's a certain amount of equality, and that's important, but there's also a give and take, right? And there's allowing people to be flawed. There's a simplicity, I think, not that people aren't doing, that we know, really awesome things and traveling, but there's a simplicity to the relationship and the kindness. And I was asking you the other day, apropos of this conversation, what is it that you think in our relationship makes you feel strong? Why do you not feel the way we're talking about with so many men that are struggling right now? Which is also probably the flip side after you answer that is, I was able to see that in you, and that's how we moved forward in part. So what was it? Or what is it?
It's a great question, because as I've said before in our podcast, I'm a psychologist, so you have to have bad parents to be a psychologist. It's almost, you almost have to prove to the licensing board that you had bad parents. But I had bad parents, and I was really insecure. And I was just, before we met, I was just a mess. I would just go out with people all the time and just, try to prove that I was masculine, trying to prove that I could have sex, trying to prove that I was desirable. But it was nothing about the two of us. I had perfect pitch, right? Me, 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 me. So it was like I had to, I had to validate myself. And I did it, and I realized it, and I realized, okay. And then I started to realize that I was okay. And then when we got together, I don't know, I guess that's a great question, but I guess I was just confident. I had my career going. I was a well-known psychologist. But I'll tell you, it really surprised me with you that somehow, some way, I just went all in with you from the beginning, even though you had a young child, which I was dating women that had that, and and I for the longest time, and that I just for somehow it seems very like kind of, I don't know, I can't explain it, but somehow I knew. I don't even take credit for it. It felt very like kind of esoteric, like somehow, some way, I'm just going to lean into this relationship. So that's what I did. I mean, I'm just thinking about this now. Like, we haven't talked about this before, but it's just like somehow, some way. That's what I would give myself an A+, is I decided to fall back and just like, let's just see what happens.
Well, I think that goes back to when I was saying like, I don't think either one of us, not that we weren't really interested, we're trying too hard. It was very organic. I had a lot more clarity. I think I've talked about this before, because I did have a young child and I had been through a lot, and I was like very clear about what I needed and what I didn't need. And so it was really easy for me to just move on if it wasn't the right situation. And for us, date 1 went great, date 2 went great, date 3 went great, but it was a lot of like just fun conversation, respectful. Start over? So, I know that sometimes when you talk about like Mad Men and this old school stuff and traditional past roles that men and women have taken, like, we as women have fought really hard for a lot of equality. And I mean, I'm a perfect example of, having some high level jobs when I worked at TBWA a day, and I was the only female creative director at the time. And it's like men just wanted to crush me. So it's become this ongoing, like, women striving and simultaneously, men crushing and feeling crushed and all of these things. And then it starts to weave into your personal relationships, right? Where it's like, oh, we have to be equal. And the truth is, what I've learned over time, and I'm sure some people will vehemently disagree with this, but sometimes allowing yourself to be a little traditional in your relationship is really sweet, right? Like, it's not all bad. It doesn't make you less equal. It just, like, maybe there's a natural order sometimes to men and women in relationships. It has nothing to do with how much money you make or any of those things that seem, what your education is, where you went to school, the whole bravado thing. But just like in the simplicity of our times together, which we do all the time, it's like, you'll be doing the dishes and I'll be doing something else. And it's, you take care of me whenever I don't feel good or my back hurts, or, you always want to do nice things for me and I want to do nice things for you. But sometimes it's also me just falling back and letting you, which makes you feel better, I think.
Yes.
And why is that bad for me? It's not. I do plenty. I'm exhausted by a lot of things. So, like, it doesn't have really anything to do with whether or not I'm going to succeed financially or, in my career or be recognized. And you would never take that away from me.
No.
I mean,
no.
And
so maybe that's it. Maybe if two people are just kind of, we love each other, and so then we don't have to try anymore, we just have to be. So if we could just, like, sometimes when we try, we be a little extra, we have to spike the football. But I think,
yeah, even in a successful relationship, when that starts to happen too much, like when you're more needy and you're trying harder, that's not a turn on.
it's not.
No.
Honey, I need.
No, like even when you're already successfully in a relationship, and Or the flip side is, again, going back, like, if you were trying to be too macho and bravado, that's also, for me, like, ew. I'm not saying that you're not masculine. It's just, there's a difference. There's a really big difference between being a strong man. So I was asked, okay, what do you think makes a man strong, or what do you think makes a man weak?
I would say to be a man or a woman, but to be strong, you just have to have a core. Like you have to have this part of you. I mean, we're all flawed. We all have our idiosyncrasies. We all have our weaknesses. We all have our moments that we're insecure and we cry and we know that this person is, more successful than I am. He makes 4 times more money and he's probably, his wiener is like this big and, and all these things. But if the person we're with, if the fact that, you love me and it's like, oh, well, that's nice. Like, that's pretty amazing. Like, it's like kind of like a miracle. It's kind of like, oh, like, she loves me and I love her. And it's just kind of like a miracle when it happens. Like, we don't have to try, we just have to be. And when we wake up and we're saying, okay, this is my person, that's a nice baseline. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a nice, before anything else, before I have to make a certain number every year, before I have to go and do, paint the house or do whatever I have to do to, try to prove my masculinity. When we have that, I think on both ends, it's just kind of, we get to exhale. Right. And then we don't have to try, we just have to be.
So I think a lot of what we're talking about and since we're more focused about talking about men being are they or are they not the weaker sex? But it could be, are women the weaker sex? It's not even, this started originally as a conversation because you made that statement and I was like, well, I don't think that's true. I think it's that waking up with your person, just exhaling, being, like I said, normal, but normal is just being like, as soon as people try too much.
I was just going to say, you don't have to try.
It goes sideways, right? It's not appealing at all, whatever that might be. Maybe there's some people out there that find that appealing, but I don't think it leads to a successful relationship if there's some false bravado or attempt to be something you're not. I mean, we're all a little bit of the representative in the beginning of a relationship, to be honest. You were, for sure. I'm sure I was. Like, we're our best selves. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about also getting real. You've got to be very real in a relationship with somebody at some point if you're going to sustain a relationship. You've got to let it all hang out, right? You got to, and if that person doesn't like you're real, they are not your person. Like, yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What is it that have you seen that makes a man strong and makes a man weak?
Well, I mean, obviously confidence makes anybody seem stronger. That's kind of a given, but it's like confidence without being cocky, being self-assured, being vulnerable is super important. Being honest with yourself about who you are. Being kind. A man that's like a bully or an idiot does not seem strong to me. They seem weak and broken. And
do you have any examples of those kinds of things?
Being open to learning things that are new, to exploring life. Do I have examples of being strong?
No, we were with someone who just could not do that. Like they just could not. They could not say you know better than I do in this regard, and you need to take the.
Well, okay, so being able to take responsibility for actions and not, turning the finger the other way, like that's just a general character trait, I think, men and women, of not taking responsibility, I think, is a big thing. There's something I was trying to remember recently that I thought because you're very complex in some ways and very simple in some ways, right? We joke about this. You're like, I'm a simple guy, I'm like a monkey, the same thing I can take, right? But your psychology is more complex than that. And come here, Esther, we're not paying attention to you right now. I know, it's terrible. This is what you don't do in a relationship. You don't be needy when you're not, see, you gotta read the cues. That's important. Read the room, read the cues, pay attention to your environment, know when to go and know when to stay. I think we actually could learn a lot from a dog.
Yes, dear.
Because they're instinctual. And it's actually true. This was not planned, but their instincts just say, I'm going to be needy now because I know she wants to go for a walk, but we can't take you for a walk right now because we're doing this. So reading cues is important. So strong men. Are you posing? There's physically strong that are very muscular, as Gary is now posing for us to show his strength. A sense of humor, overdoing it. I think vulnerability, confidence, which I know is sort of cliche, but it's true. Confidence, not cocky. Sometimes in your most vulnerable moments, you're your strongest. Like the ability to be able to go there, to be sad, happy, disappointed, and not feel weak. Feel like I can be this way. I'm a person. I have feelings. I can be all over the place. Like
yeah, it's the old saying: the cover up is worse than the crime.
Yeah, sometimes.
Like if I'm trying to cover it up, it's just like, no, I'm a mess right now, sweetheart. I'm just a mess. And go from there.
Yeah. And I would say be a mess, but I also feel like there has to be not wallowing in the mess.
Yeah, you don't want to marinate in that.
Not marinating. It's like being like vulnerable, like I'm a mess, whatever, this is really hard, something's really not making me feel good, bad things are whatever it is, to go there, but then to not marinate in it and lift yourself up from the bootstraps. People that marinate in things they're not helping themselves.
It's also very regressive when we need to suckle. We need to come up to you and just, go and just like feed me right now. Instead of like, all right, this is a hammer, this is a nail, let's figure this out. Right. But sometimes, at least in my history, when I was at my weakest, when I was really just not there yet, I would become like very baby-like.
Yeah.
I've had those moments in my life. Thankfully, they're very much in the rearview mirror, but I would just become very, very baby-like.
Sorry.
I saw that, dear. I was looking this way, but I want you to know.
Between me and our people watching.
Yes, dear.
About the baby legs. That's all. That's the only part.
But
if he starts sucking and stuff, I'll be surprised.
So,
Sorry, I totally interrupted you,
yes,
baby.
my love. Yes. So,
Suckling. You were talking about suckling.
yeah. Well, I got a little carried away with that. Yes. So there's that part of us, I think, that we still.
And by the way, as a woman, I recently there was something that happened. We won't get into it. And all I wanted to do was crawl into the covers and spend the entire day in bed, which I couldn't do. But that's what I wanted to do. And that would have been okay if I actually physically could have taken the day off and done it. But if I did it the next day and the next day and didn't face reality of what's in front of us, right? That's just being mature and responsible. And yeah, you can be a baby once in a while, but if you're just a baby, immature,
I'm not a baby.
brat.
Believe you say I'm a baby.
Right? If you're, there's being vulnerable, but not being spiraling out of control, right? So I don't know how many conclusions we've come to today about this. This is a tough topic, but I think that it's not that tough. I don't think that men or women are the weaker sex. I think we have our weaknesses. I think that I understand, as we talk about it, not just today, but in our relationship, why men can feel weaker today than they may have 100 years ago. It's challenging times, but it's as challenging for women. That hasn't stopped. It's probably going backwards in some ways. It's tough, I had to work, I said this before, really hard to rise above some societal norms of, where my place is. And we see our children still going through these things to some degree, but far less. And you don't want to take all that work away either. But men,
we're
partners,
intimidated by
whether
that,
it's men and women or men and men or women and women or your friends, right? Whatever it is in this world, working things together and communicating and allowing your vulnerabilities and exposing some of your weaknesses is actually a strength to me, to be able to be real that. And we were talking about dating, how do we end up together? I don't know. It was a timing, it was a lot of things, but we also were very real. We were funny, but we were very real and honest about, this is where I'm at. This is where I've come from. These are the things I'm really bad at. These are the things I'm really good at. This is how we could come together. We fell in love. We were very real.
The stories that I hear from my patients a lot is the women that I work with, they'll say these men, it's so interesting. They would, women will say to me, well, he just says, I'm so beautiful. I'm so beautiful. The men don't know what to do. They don't know how to connect. So they just say, oh yeah, you're just so lovely. You're just so beautiful. They're not, which is fine. It's nice to say, I say to you all the time, you're gorgeous, but it's nice to be able to say, hi, I'm da-da-da-da-da, tell me about yourself, instead of just saying, oh God, you're so amazing. Instead of just being real, instead of being performative, I see a lot of men that try. They're not being, but they're trying. They're human tryings. And they're not being human beings. They're not just sitting there and saying, oh, I don't agree with that, or no, why would you say that? And say, oh, that's really interesting. Even if they don't feel that, or even if they don't think that. And it's almost like they're putting on a show. And I'm not talking men in general. I'm talking about in the scope of my practice over the many years that I've done this, I've seen it way too often, and I've seen many women complain, all he wants to do is say, oh God, you're just so lovely. Is that it? I'm just lovely? I'm this human being, and it's nice to be thought of as beautiful, but is that it?
Well, also, there's a lot of times going back to when I would date, a man talks a lot about what he's up to, what he's doing, and what's going on, and it's like, don't you want to know about my life? And that goes to anybody, dating, not dating. Like, listen to people. That's a strength. Listening is a strength, for sure.
What'd you say?
You talking to me?
That was low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging
I'm
fruit.
sorry for the audience. I was embarrassed in advance before I said that.
We joke a lot of times because Gary gets paid often to be listening to people and their issues. When he doesn't listen to me or he doesn't remember what I said, it's because I don't pay him enough.
It's true. Yeah. My wife says to me every once in a while, you don't listen to me. And I say, honey, I never listen to you. But if it's real and if it's true and if it's important, of course, there's no one better in the world that will listen to you. Obviously, I'm being silly, but but it's nice to be able to be silly and dopey and not to have to try, just to be. Because when you're a human trying, it's exhausting. But when you're a human being, it's just light, it's easy. Well, we thank you for listening. This was an interesting topic today. I don't think there's an answer for this particular topic. I think it's a fun discussion, and it's interesting to kind of unpack it a little bit. So it's one of those things where no one's right and no one's wrong, but it's fun to kind of go drill down and to think about it. So we look forward to seeing you in our next episode. And till then, be well.
Take care.